Years passed without asking permission. They moved quietly at first, almost politely, until one day you realize they've taken more with them than you expected. Not things, moments. At some point, you stop noticing the seasons as much. Summer still comes. Winter still follows. But they no longer shape your days the way they once did. Life fills the space instead. Responsibilities stack neatly on top of each other. Days blur. Time begins to feel like something you manage rather than something you live inside. And then, one evening, without warning, something slows you down. Maybe it's a familiar smell drifting through an open window. Maybe it's the sound of water somewhere nearby. Maybe it's the quiet of a winter night when the house finally settles, and suddenly, you're not here anymore. You're back there. Back to the warmth of a living room filled with voices you recognize without looking. Back to the soft glow of lamps and the sound of someone moving around in the kitchen. Back to a time when being together was enough. You remember the dock first. The way the boards felt beneath your feet. The slight give of old wood smoothed by years of sun and water. The way your legs dangled freely, feet brushing the surface, sending ripples outward. You remember how light looked then, brighter, more patient. The sun didn't rush across the sky. It stayed, it watched. Laughter felt easier. It didn't come from jokes. It came from presence. You didn't need to explain yourself to anyone. You didn't need to plan who you were becoming. You were already enough. Those summers didn't teach you lessons. They didn't prepare you for the world. They simply let you be. Winter memories arrive next. The hush of snow settling on streets. The way sounds softened as if the world itself was holding its breath. Windows glowing against the dark. The kitchen smelled warm. Meals took longer. People stayed. You remember how adults looked then. Tired, maybe. Worried, sometimes, but steady. They didn't have answers for everything, but they had time. And somehow, that was enough. New Year's Eve returns quietly. Not the countdown. Not the noise. The feeling. The way the room felt suspended between what was ending and what hadn't started yet. The way hope existed without needing proof. You remember falling asleep before midnight. The disappointment that lasted only a moment. The comfort that lasted all night. Waking up to a new year that felt clean, unwritten. Now, years later, the calendar still changes, but feels different. The weight of time presses more firmly. The future doesn't feel wide open anymore. And yet, those memories don't fade. They don't disappear. They wait. They live quietly beneath the surface. Like water under ice. And when life becomes too loud, too fast, too heavy, they rise. They remind you that there was a time when happiness didn't need to be chased. When joy arrived unannounced and stayed as long as it wanted. They remind you that home wasn't a place. It was a feeling. A room filled with familiar voices. A summer afternoon by the water. A winter night wrapped in warmth. Those moments didn't last forever, but neither did the fear. Neither did the uncertainty. What lasted was the knowing, the quiet certainty that once you belonged completely to your life. And maybe that's what we spend the rest of our years searching for, not the past itself, but the feeling it gave us. The sense of being present, of being held by time instead of pushed by it. Sometimes, when the year turns again, and the world outside celebrates loudly, you find yourself stepping back. You lower the volume. You dim the lights. And for a moment, you let yourself remember the dock, the water, the warmth of winter evenings, the promise that a new year once carried. You don't need it to return. You just need to know it was real, that it happened, that you lived it. And that's somewhere inside you. It still does. The days didn't end all at once. They never did. Summer loosened its grip slowly, as if it understood how much we needed it. The air changed first. Not enough to complain about, just enough to notice. Mornings felt cooler. Evenings arrived earlier. The path to the water still waited for us, but we didn't take it as often. School notebooks appeared on tables. Shoes found their way back onto feet. Responsibilities returned quietly, pretending they had always been there, but something of summer stayed. It stayed in the way we moved through the house with windows still open, in the way we lingered outside just a little longer before coming in the way laughter carried farther in the cool air. As the weeks passed, the lake grew calmer. Fewer splashes, more reflections. We sat on the dock again, but this time wrapped in light jackets. Feet tucked closer to ourselves. The water felt colder now, less inviting. Still familiar. We didn't jump in anymore. We watched instead. Watched leaves drift across the surface. Watched the sky turn softer colors. Watched the season close its chapter. At home, the rhythm changed. Windows stayed shut. Curtains were drawn earlier. The house felt smaller, but in a good way. The kitchen became the center again. There were sounds you only heard in colder months. The clink of dishes stacked carefully. The slow simmer of something warm on the stove. The soft scrape of chairs pulled closer together. My mother moved differently now. Slower. More deliberate. She cooked meals that filled the house with warmth before anyone even sat down. Soups that steamed gently. Bread that cracked softly when torn. The smell lingered long after dinner ended. My father came home earlier when he could. He hung his coat near the door, shaking off the cold, rubbing his hands together as if he was bringing the outside in with him. Evenings gathered us together without effort. We sat in the living room, not doing much of anything. The television stayed on, low enough to ignore. Lights were softer, voices quieter. Time felt heavier then, not in a bad way. In a meaningful way. As if every hour carried more weight than before. School days blurred together. We counted them not by lessons learned, but by how close we were getting to the holidays. Winter crept closer. The first cold morning arrived without warning. Breath showed in the air. Frost clung to windows like delicate patterns drawn overnight. We stood inside. hands pressed against the glass. Watching the world sharpen. Snow came soon after. It fell slowly, transforming everything it touched. The street grew silent. Sound softened. Footsteps became muffled. Voices carried less. The world felt paused. Inside, the house glowed brighter against the dark. Lights reflected off windows. Shadows stretched across walls. The air felt thicker, warmer. Winter didn't push us apart. It pulled us closer. We gathered around tables more often. We lingered after meals. Stories surfaced. Adults talked about their own childhoods. About winters that felt colder than this one. About years that changed everything. We listened without interrupting. Learning without realizing we were learning. Decorations appeared slowly. A box from the closet. Another from the attic. Old ornaments wrapped carefully in paper that had yellowed with time. Some were chipped. Some faded. All of them mattered. The tree arrived one afternoon. Dragged through the door with laughter and effort. Pine needles scattered across the floor. The smell filled the house instantly. We decorated without rules. Lights tangled. Ornaments hung unevenly. Nothing matched. Everything felt right. The days between felt suspended. School felt shorter. Work felt lighter. Everyone seemed to be waiting for something. And then New Year's Eve arrived. It never announced itself loudly. It slipped in quietly, pretending to be just another winter night, but we knew better. The house felt different that evening. Not festive in a loud way, but intentional. Food stayed out longer. Plates filled and emptied slowly. Conversations lingered. The television showed crowds far away, but we stayed where we were. Children tried to stay awake. Adults pretended not to notice how tired we were. Someone always said just a little longer. The clock moved slower that night. Or maybe we did. Time stretched itself thin, like it wanted to give us space. Laughter came and went in waves. Stories repeated. Memories resurfaced. Outside, the world waited. Inside, we stayed. As midnight crept closer. Voices softened. People leaned in. The room grew quiet in a way that felt important. We counted down together. Not loudly, together. And when the year changed, nothing exploded. Nothing shook, but something shifted. Hope moved quietly through the room. Adults hugged. Children smiled, half awake. Someone whispered something they wouldn't remember the next day. Happy New Year. We said it back, not fully understanding what it meant. And then, slowly, the night loosened its hold. People gathered coats. Dishes were cleared. Lights dimmed. Sleep came easily. Morning arrived gently. The year was new. The world looked the same. But everything felt possible. There was a time when days didn't arrive with urgency. They didn't knock loudly or pull you out of sleep with sharp sounds. They simply appeared quietly through thin curtains, carried by light that felt gentle instead of demanding. Morning back then had a softness to it. Sunlight slipped across the floor in long, pale shapes, resting for a moment on the wall before moving on. The house breathed slowly. No one rushed it. I remember waking up without knowing why. Not because of an alarm. Not because someone called my name. Just because the day felt ready. Outside, the world was already awake. You could hear it in small ways, the distant hum of water, the faint chirping of birds hidden somewhere in the trees, the slow creak of a screen door opening down the street. Even before your feet touched the floor, you knew it was going to be a summer day. The kind that didn't ask anything of you. The kitchen always smelled warm in the mornings. Not hot, not heavy, just familiar. Toast, coffee. Something sweet that lingered in the air even after it was gone. Adults moved differently back then. They didn't stare into their hands. They looked at each other. They spoke in full sentences. Their conversations didn't feel fragmented. My mother would stand at the counter, sleeves rolled up, humming quietly, not for anyone else but for herself. That sound filled the room more than any radio ever could. It made the house feel safe in a way I didn't understand at the time. She'd say, not urgently, not strictly, just enough to remind us that food was ready and the day could begin. We ate quickly, not because we were told to, but because outside was waiting. Shoes were optional. They often stayed by the door, untouched. Bare feet were enough. By the time we reached the road, the sun was already high enough to warm our shoulders. The pavement held onto the heat from yesterday like it hadn't let go yet. Bikes leaned against fences. Towels hung over handlebars. No one asked where we were going. Everyone knew. The path to the water was worn down by years of small feet and careless steps. It curved gently, lined with tall grass that brushed against your legs as you passed. Every step closer brought a change in sound. Less street, more water. And then, suddenly, it opened. The lake didn't announce itself. It simply appeared, wide, calm, reflecting the sky as if it belonged there. The surface shimmered slightly, disturbed only by a breeze that never felt cold. The wooden dock stretched out over the water, old and uneven, boards smoothed by countless summers. You could feel its history under your feet. Every step carried a soft creak, like the dock was acknowledging you. We sat at the edge without thinking about it, legs dangling, feet breaking the surface. The first touch of water was always surprising, cool, sharp, alive. We kicked gently at first, watching the ripples travel outward, touching nothing and everything at the same time. Sunlight danced across the surface, broken into pieces that moved quickly to follow. Laughter came easily there. It didn't need a reason. It didn't wait for permission. Sometimes we jumped in without warning. Sometimes we just sat and talked. About nothing important. About everything we thought mattered. Time didn't move the same way near the water. Minutes stretched. Hours folded into each other. Lunch arrived late, if it arrived at all. Someone would open a bag, pass around whatever was inside. Food tasted better outside. Always had. The sun climbed higher, turning the dock warm beneath us. Would press gently against skin, leaving patterns that faded slowly. Like marks meant only to remind you where you'd been. We swam until our arms grew tired and our skin wrinkled. Then we rested. Then we swam again. No one kept score. No one counted how long we stayed in. The water held us the way memory does, firm enough to support you, soft enough to let you go. At some point in the afternoon, the light shifted. It wasn't sudden. It never was. Shadows grew longer. Colors deepened. The lake looked different then, quieter, more reflective. We lay on towels spread across the dock, eyes half closed, listening to the world settle. Insects buzzed softly in the tall grass. A bird skimmed the surface of the water, wings barely touching. There was a feeling that arrived around that time of day. Hard to describe. Not sadness. Not happiness. Something in between. A sense that the day was slowly becoming something else. We didn't talk about it. We didn't need to. Eventually, someone would say it was time to head back. Not because the day was over, but because something else was beginning. The walk home always felt different, slower, quieter. Wet towels weighed heavy on shoulders. Skin still warm from the sun cooled quickly in the evening air. Houses along the road glowed softly as windows caught the last light. Porch lights flickered on, one by one, like signals guiding us back. Dinner waited. Voices waited. The familiar waited. And somewhere deep inside, without words, without understanding, we knew this was a good day. One worth remembering, even if we didn't know yet how.